All right, good afternoon, everyone. A little different setup today. Welcome to Into the Stands, episode 6. Can't believe we're already here, along with Chris and Colin. I'm Robbie, of course. And today we're breaking down MLB and NFL news, but we'll dive into the MLB playoffs because that's, of course, the thing that happened first. It's been an interesting playoffs so far. If I don't know myself, we're going to break down a couple of series for you guys. We'll start off in the National League because it's been chaos. And I'll start with the Padres. It was Padres Phillies. What are we? Padres Phillies is the NLCS. We start with Padres Dodgers. I think everyone here thought the Dodgers were going to kill the Padres. And what do you know? We're right again. The Dodgers fold and the Padres. Now I'll give the Padres a lot of credit. They did what they needed to do, and they did. They had a good series, but I was expecting a lot more from the Dodgers. Like I remember Dave Roberts saying like they're the best team in the league, and I feel like they had the capabilities to do more. Like that's always been the thing with the Dodgers. Can they go take that next step? Can they go out and win a pennant again, win the World Series? And they just haven't been able to do that. So I mean, I'll hand over to you guys. Like, what are your thoughts on this series?
Well, I'll take it first because actually the Dodgers were the team that I had winning the World Series. So my World Series pick has gone down, and
all three of ours are out, by the way.
Yep.
All three of ours are done.
So I thought that that's the best team in baseball. I thought that looking at that roster all around seemed pretty obvious and the right choice for this. And actually, there was before the postseason started, I remember seeing it now with them losing. The Los Angeles Times actually came out and said that they should just cancel the postseason because it's clear and obvious the Dodgers are the best team in baseball. Well, that didn't happen. For so long, the narrative surrounding this series is that the Padres were the little brother of the Dodgers, that they were never going to get over that hump, and that the Dodgers basically owned them. And for the past couple of years, it really looked like that. But, just in this series, the Padres really turned it around. I mean, all credit goes to them. I mean, they're still doing this. Keep in mind, without Fernando Tatis Jr., he's been out for this entire postseason due to the PED issue from earlier this season. But, the offseason trade for Juan Soto, maybe if he didn't have, per se, the most explosive series, I mean, just still, the team obviously improved. And, kind of similar to the situation where how the Padres are missing Tatis, kind of like how the Braves didn't have Acuna last year. But regardless, their team's still getting it done. And we'll get into the team who they're playing, the Phillies, in just a little bit, I'm sure. But I'll hand it over now to Chris. What does he have to make about this outcome?
Yeah, well, I mean, if it's doing anything, it's causing a lot of controversy around baseball as to whether the 5-game best of 5 series is good enough or determines the best team well enough, right? Like the Dodgers won 110 games, and look, I'll say that I believe that I'm not the biggest fan of best of 5 series, and maybe it is a little biased because the Yankees really almost got eliminated by the Cleveland Guardians. But they luckily came back. But then again, would the Guardians have come back if it were best of 7? Who knows? I believe that all series should be best of 7, maybe not the wild card. I think that best of 3 is perfect, right? Because, if you're a wild card team, you deserve to be in the playoffs and you deserve a second or third chance, but you don't deserve, or second chance, but you don't deserve that same chance as a best of 7 series. So I believe that this season being longer than all other sports, I think there does need to be a best of 7 series in all playoff series besides maybe the wild card. And actually, you know what? Maybe that as well because we saw the Mets go down. But the Dodgers, I mean, they just could not hit. And when they scored runs, the fourth game that they lost, they just had that rough inning. It was the 5th inning where the Dodgers bullpen, they threw out every solid arm they had, and they just couldn't get the job done. They just got beat. And the same goes for the Phillies against the Braves. They just beat the Braves just on all levels. They just dominated. And maybe this series, this Padres, the Dodgers, a little closer, but Padres pitching just completely outmatched Dodgers hitting. And the Padres just hit when it mattered most. It felt like the Dodgers after game 2, it was kind of like, oh, it's all right. We'll win in San Diego. They couldn't score a run in game 3. I mean, that was just a phenomenal. I watched that game. That was a phenomenal pitching performance by the Padres. And maybe a lack of hitting, there's a lack of usefulness in any way from the Dodgers hitting. But game 4, I'm pretty sure I didn't watch game 4. I think they were up by like 3. They just blew it in the 5th.
Right, that's pretty much what happened.
I mean, they just lost in every way possible in each game that they lost, and I mean, there's no saying that they couldn't have come back because then let's say there was a best of 7, they'd have another game in San Diego. Then if they win that, they'd have 2 more in Dodger Stadium, or 2 more if they do win that one game at Dodger Stadium, then they go to Game 7. But I mean, there's no telling that the Dodgers couldn't have come back. So yeah, I think if anything, it just the Dodgers did not play well enough. But you never know, crazier things have happened, and I think a best of 7 series is definitely proves who the better team is, more efficiently, right, or better than the best of 5 series.
You're right. I kind of like to take about the best of 7, but I feel like it's like how they did with wild cards. That's I love the best of 3.
Maybe
I feel like they did it right. They finally found a way to do it right in a way.
I think so too. Like I think it's definitely better, and that's why I think it's like we've had an epiphany like that. Finally, 162 game season, and we're finally realizing that a series is a better way of determining the better team, not just a playoff. Albeit that was all fun, and cool, right? The whole one game playoff. Who's gonna win it? Who's gonna move on? It's not fair. I actually think the 5 series could be better for a wild card series, because that kind of makes more sense. Maybe you don't deserve that much or that many lifelines as that won a division, but you deserve maybe a best of 5.
So here's my issue with the best of 5 for the wild card. It's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
It takes too long.
Yeah.
So you would do the best of 5. I think if you would do the best of 5, the season was shorter. So I think if, say for example, you went 2 weeks shorter, then you'd go best of 5. But I feel like they found a perfect balance. One wild card game, not it. Best of 5 in that situation when they did it well. So I'm thinking like best of 3 is perfect. Also best of 7 divisional round. I'm mixed about that because I kind of like how much strategy there goes into a best of 5, especially with the way some teams do it. Like a big thing a couple years ago was starting pitchers were not going long in playoff games. And a big thing that happened this year was starters went long in playoff games, especially in the wild card round. You saw guys like Shane McClanahan, who I would think didn't go long in game, should not have gone long in game 1. He went 7 innings. You see other guys, Shane Bieber, perfect example. The Mets, I mean, Scherzer got lit up, but
you can't talk about the Mets.
DeGrom went longer than I thought he would go, especially with a manager who's managed in the playoffs before. I mean, other teams have done it as well. So it's really a mixed bag on how I don't know.
My question for that would be like, isn't the point to prove who the best team is? And really, it's not about who has the best 3 in a rotation; it's who has the best 5. And really, in a best of 7, you have to use 5. So either I believe.
Do you think the Dodgers would have won in a best of 7?
I think they could have. You never know. I mean, sure, they could have lost the next game the next day. They didn't deserve to win it based off what the rules were, best of 5. But who knows? I mean, crazier things have happened. They did it against the Braves 2020 when it was the ALCS best of 7. That team was really good, that Braves team. That team could have won the World Series, and they did the next year. I just think you kind of have to be a little more consistent. I'm not complaining. I just think it's a conversation that can be had that why is the division series best of 5 and then the ALCS and World Series best of 7? Why can't they all be the same?
It's a fair argument.
Yeah, so that's something you could discuss.
But speaking of fair arguments, let's head to the East Coast, from the West to the East, the Braves and the Phillies. How did this happen? That's my question for Philadelphia. What did you do? Like, how? I'm never going to understand this team at all. I mean, Zach Wheeler is insane. Aaron Nola is really good. Who pitched game 3 for them? Zach Eflin? Ranger Suarez.
They somehow won.
What?
Oh, wait.
I think I thought Eflin.
No, it was Ranger Suarez. They won that game. He somehow kept them in the bullpen, actually.
They started to show life for once.
Yeah.
But I think I thought they would. I knew when the Phillies were going to win is when that Rhys Hoskins bat flip came into play. Like when you saw that, like you knew the Phillies had all the momentum, all the energy that they needed, and they just outplayed Atlanta. And this does show some flaws in Atlanta's starting pitching a little bit. Now, granted, they're injured the heck and back. Atlanta, I don't know what they do. I think they do need to go for bullpen arms. Imagine they get Diaz, but I don't know. They're an interesting bunch in a spot that they didn't expect themselves to be in, because I thought 102 wins, they do something in the playoffs. other than get eliminated in the divisional round. I mean, Colin, what are your thoughts?
So the talk of the entire regular season in the NL East was that race between the Braves and the Mets. Right? Both teams having over 100 wins. Both of them being real contenders in the National League. And yet, despite all of that, the team in third place, the Philadelphia Phillies, is playing in the NLCS. Now, as has been documented, I was the only one on the show to pick the Phillies over the Cardinals, a pick which, even I back at the time, I felt I was going for an upset, but I was like, maybe the Cardinals.
I mean, when you saw my reaction, it said it all.
I mean, obviously, no one saw that coming. And I came on this, and actually, right after I made that pick, picking them over the Cardinals, I said they would get swept by the Braves. So this Phillies team, and it's really crazy to see. I mean, we saw this in the past. You saw the run that the Nationals went on back in 2019. You saw the run that even the Braves last year that maybe didn't expect. But I mean, this just feels different. It has so many flaws. I mean, you talk about the further reinforcement on the fact that the time for playoffs, it really just depends on who is the entire season. Because look at the NLCS we have now. It's Phillies versus Padres. The first time in MLB history, we have two teams that won less than 90 games in LCS. I mean, really just really groundbreaking what we're seeing in this NLCS between the Phillies and the Padres. And just, I'm not sure how much more longer Philly can keep it up, but what I know for sure is they're definitely maybe the best team in baseball. And that obviously means such a ton going into October. So, I mean, I want to ask you, Chris, what do you make about this Phillies team?
I mean, I don't know what's going on with Philadelphia sports right now in general. I mean, everyone's winning. I mean, I know the Sixers lost the other night, but I mean, they're still a great team that people are going to watch and be excited for over there. The Phillies are in the LCS, and they're 3 wins away now, going back to Philadelphia from a World Series appearance. The Eagles are still undefeated. The Flyers even are like 3-1. What the hell? Apparently, their MLS team in the playoffs.
I think that's the only team that lost last.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's still a team that people are excited for. One of the teams that you'd probably be the most excited for in that city. I mean, like, what the hell is going on with Philly right now? And it's crazy. I mean, again, I think it's a great sports city, so I'm happy for them. But I mean, it's just insane, and I really did not think this team was going to go far. I can't believe I'm saying this, but if the Yankees get eliminated, I'm almost like diehard rooting for the Phillies. It's crazy because I hate the Padres, obviously, because they're both underdogs. But it's just crazy how this team's getting it done. You see the Padres, their lineup from top to bottom is great. Jake Cronenworth, nobody remembers him, and he's like probably been the best player on the Padres right now.
I would think so.
The pitching is tremendous, like all throughout. I mean, that 1-2-3 is incredible. And then I think this bullpen is phenomenal as well. But the Phillies are somehow tied with them in a series. They could have won yesterday had Aaron Nola and then the bullpen not completely folded, really. But now they're going back to Philadelphia, that series. And it's just crazy to think that either of those two teams is actually going to be in the World Series. I cannot believe that. Yet I'm really happy. And maybe I shouldn't be, right? Maybe I feel like a lot of people are saying this is bad for the National League. But then again, I think a lot of those people are Mets fans or Dodgers fans.
So I being a Mets fan, I'm saying this is a non-biased opinion. I think the issue is that so what the Padres are doing, they are going all in. Yeah. They remind me of the Rams in the NFL, going all in, trading all your futures, going for one major push. And they did it for going after Soto and Hader. My problem with this is this ruins small market teams. Like, if you really think about it, because you maybe see as a team like, let's give an example, Kansas City. Kansas City, if they had when they won the World Series, they didn't really go all in. They had all homegrown talent, pretty much all homegrown.
Cueto was their big.
Cueto was the big sign, and they big move, and they traded the equivalent of table scrap.
So what became table scraps?
What became table scraps, which at the time was also considered table scraps.
Really?
So you see teams do that, and then you see teams give out all these giant contracts, which not everyone is able to do. Now, granted, Kansas City is not as big of a sports market for baseball now as it used to be, but I don't know. I think this could hurt the sport. The teams are going all in like this, screwing all their futures. Because I think if the Padres and their big thing next year is going to be if they can re-sign Soto. But imagine they don't re-sign Soto. This is an interesting question. Imagine they don't re-sign Soto, then what? And they don't win a World Series with Soto because of how much he's going to demand. What was the point of trading for him?
Well, to try to win now, because the Padres,
Like, do you think they were? So I feel like they still have issues in their bullpen. I think they could trade. So trading for Hader was
They're
interesting.
somehow still getting it done though.
That's the
crazy.
problem because I don't know. I love their starting pitching though. Their starting pitching
good.
is.
It is.
I mean, when we saw that against the Mets, they were absolutely disgusting. So, I mean, I kind of like what they're doing. I don't like what they're doing, but the players they're going for and how they're doing, like some of that type of stuff, I think is right. Like this player, the roster creation that they've done is absolutely ridiculous.
I want to expand on what you said. When you're saying with that it's bad for big small market teams, I think that's actually more of the Phillies, because the Phillies are a terrible team when it comes to
paying Harper. How much they're paying? They're paying Bryce Harper more than the payroll of Baltimore at the end of this season.
And what's odd though is Harper's contract is fairly short, or really short in terms of money being given to him. I
30 mil, I think.
And you think, right? I think he's getting paid less than 30. He's gonna get paid like 30. He's only getting like,
I believe it's 30 flat.
It's less
with
than
bonuses. It's 30.
I think more. A lot of players are making, a lot of superstars.
Like you see what Trout's making, and you see like compared to Harper. Harper, I believe, has played more games than Trout in the last couple of years. Probably since the contract.
He's been crazy. I think he's honestly been better. Really, it's crazy.
It's debatable.
What I want to expand on what you said before we move on to the Yankees in their game yesterday and tonight. But I think the Phillies, right? They don't deserve to be here. They really don't.
That is true.
They're
terrible. That is a fair statement.
They're terrible when it comes to developing young talent. Really, I mean, you look. You have Alec Boehm and the shortstop Stott. Those are the only two players in the lineup that you actually developed, as far as I'm concerned.
They had Hoskins.
But he's kind of become like a mid, home run hitter here and there. He was supposed to be like a star hitter. Harper you signed. Segura you traded for. Realmuto you traded for. The pitching, you develop. I'll give them that.
Yeah. They signed the Mets.
They signed Suarez.
Somehow from the Phillies.
Yeah, but he's kind of been underwhelming. He's another one that's kind of just randomly been good out of the bullpen now. They don't have this rich farm system that really is this dynasty of a team. It seems like Harper is the face of this team, and they signed him. The Padres, I have to give them a ton of credit. You look at this team, their top three in the rotation, all traded for. I think they've given up probably a total of like 14 prospects for all three of those guys.
They got Musgrove,
Snell, and Darvish. They all traded for all three of those.
Darvish was, I believe, 3. Musgrove was 5.
And then Snell was like 4.
Snell was 4. Yeah.
Yeah. So whatever that is. And you look at obviously Soto. I mean, I can't believe
Josh Bell's been underrated as well.
Josh Bell they traded for. Jake Cronin.
That's that we didn't really talk about when we talked about that series.
Grisham.
Sure. That's
Profar.
one. Profar.
Yeah. Also traded for him. Grisham traded for. Under the radar trades like you see with Grisham. Musgrove even.
Grisham's wasn't that under the radar.
It was like a random.
He got traded because of that one mistake in the playoffs.
But even then, the guy who Milwaukee got was
Zach Davies
and Luis Urias. It was like their shortstop, I think, your third baseman.
Like one of them. Now,
so it's like this. They were terrible for so many years since I think 2010, 2008, not even like 2006.
Maybe.
So they spent this whole time just developing young talent and trading them away, now with this to create this dynasty of a team. And then making these under the radar little trades. I don't care about what I care what Tatis did, but regardless, you Fernando Tatis for James Shields. I mean, these trades
that is one of the biggest meme trades ever.
AJ Preller is one of the best GMs in baseball, and I don't want to hear anything about it. I mean, this guy's shown a willingness to create a winning culture, and he's done it this way. Which, I mean, this team he's done it kind of the way that Theo Epstein did with the Cubs. And the way Jeff Lupo did it with the Astros, although that kind of overloading as well. But I mean, it's a great GM, and he's put this great team on the field. I mean, even look at Clevenger. I mean, you look at the Cleveland Guardians. I'll move on in a second. The Cleveland Guardians, Quantrill, Josh Naylor, and I think like even Franmil Reyes, who they had for a couple years. They got those 3 guys who were a staple on their team. For Mike Clevenger.
Yeah.
Like that. I'm just talking about the amount of guys who were former Padres. Corey Kluber was a Padre.
Anthony
prospect
Rizzo
at
was
once.
a Padre.
Anthony Rizzo. I mean, these guys, like, they are showing a willingness to trade, and it's hurt them in a way. But I mean, you look at the team that because they obviously I think they'd love to have Anthony Rizzo right now over Will Myers, but he's another guy they traded for. This whole team was traded for this whole team, and they've done a great job because look at where they are now. So it's insane.
Let's keeping going down the East Coast. We'll go Yankees and the Guardians. Wow. So here's my thoughts on this series. This should not have been close. I think all three of us here will agree that, and everyone watching this can agree that this series on paper should not have been close. But Cleveland has shown that this form of resistance type of thing, where they're going to say, like, you know what, we're gonna have nothing to lose. We're gonna go out and do whatever we can to make moves and win at least one game in the series. Because I think the Yankees might have underestimated Cleveland a little bit, kind of like how we saw with some of the wild card series, is that they underestimated their opponent. This should have been a sweep. Do we all agree with that? This should have been a sweep on paper. So Cleveland, the Cleveland dominant was good, had good starting pitching until they got absolutely lit up a couple of nights. But this does, for Cleveland long term, this shows a multiple flaws that they have on the roster. Do you remember when they got how they got Clase?
I do.
Corey Kluber trade.
And I remember talking about that sophomore year.
Corey Kluber
saying how the Indians then actually won that trade. And I mean, look at it now.
Yeah, I mean, Emmanuel Clase.
One inning Kluber pitched with Texas.
And I remember when he played against Cleveland in the wild card series, he allowed that absolute tank to left field up for Oscar Gonzalez. But you look at Cleveland now, what do? They're not going to go out and spend money. I mean, I feel they need a clear direction. Like, they can win that division as long as Chicago does not keep imploding itself, which I don't think they will, because they're actually going to get a new manager this offseason. So I feel like if Chicago does what they need to do is right, and they sign someone that's actually competent, I feel like Chicago is going to win this division for years to come for how young they are and how explosive they can be. So I feel like if you're Cleveland, you need to go out and sign. I think they go and sign a starter, like whoever's available. Kind of like, I'm thinking like a guy like a Bassett would be an interesting piece for them, like a short term, kind of not long term deal for them. But I feel like they get a guy like a Bassett that solidifies their rotation a little bit more for depth, because you have guys like Savali and Quantrill who have been all solid. Bieber, who's been great. Adding a guy like Bassett, and you have Tristan McKenzie. That's a solid rotation. That is a division rotation. When in a row, I think they're possibly better in influence. I think Cleveland will be the team to beat next season if they do it right. But I mean, let's see. Colin, what are your takes on this series?
Cleveland showed a lot in that series. I mean, really pushing the Yankees to the brink. I mean, I'll tell you, after that game-free walk-off hit by Oscar Gonzalez, I thought it was going to be yet another crushing Yankees postseason exit. I mean, it really just had that fun around it. It felt like the Yankees were going to lose that series. But, I mean, of course, in the case of the Yankees, I mean, really, Garrett Cole having a phenomenal series coming out there in both Game 1 and in Game 4, pitching just insane. In Game 5, a game which I actually was at Yankee Stadium, amazing energy. You know, we saw Josh Naylor get repeatedly booed and a lot of different chants there, which I'm going to also want to talk about for a second. What do we make about that Josh Naylor celebration? What are your guys' thoughts on that?
So my take on it is simple. And I feel like the NFL should take notes on this. Let them do what they want in a way. As long as it's not completely like offensive, let them do what they want. Like that celebration, I loved it. I feel like that's the spark like of interest that the postseason needed in a way.
How would you feel if that was Jacob deGrom though? He did that too.
Oh, I would not be mad at it at all. I'd be laughing. No, in all seriousness, I would be laughing if that happened, because that's something you don't get to see every day. And I feel like against the Yankees as well, that was perfect. It just felt perfect in a way when that happened, watching it live on time. But yeah, let's hear your take, Chris.
Well, I actually agree with Robbie. I think, you got to let the players do what they want. But I'll say this, and I'm sure Naylor learned it. Do something like that. Not a game-changing home run. It was not a game-tying or didn't give the Guardians the lead. It wasn't a walk-off home run. It wasn't even a bomb. It was going to be a double off the wall when it was first hit off the bat. But if he wants to do that, let him do it. Let him do it. Let him do whatever he wants. Let him do whatever he wants to that pitcher. Let him say whatever he wants to the pitcher. But just know that, I mean, you're gonna hear it when you go back to Yankee Stadium, and that's the thing. You want to do that in a game that you're losing. You weren't even winning that game. So now you lost that game. You went back to Yankee Stadium where you're gonna get booed, you're gonna hear it, and you lost that game. So now everyone's bringing it back to the Guardians. And now Cleveland, I actually have to agree. Now I guess I'll bring this into talking about that series in general. I feel like there was a sense where the Yankees, even their organization, not just the fans, were the Yankees organization, right, with a lot of Aaron Boone's decisions, it seemed like he underestimated the Guardians. But I feel like the moment that Josh Naylor hit that home run, the momentum shifted to the Yankees side because now the Guardians, it was one celebration, it was one jog around the bases, but that really shifted the momentum back to the Yankees' favor. The Guardians. I mean, it wasn't just another one people don't talk about. I think it was Will Brennan, some bench player from the Guardians, said how I think we're going to close this one out. I think this is our series now. Which, granted, fine, you want to have confidence in your team, but now the Guardians really tried to prove that they were a better team, and they just couldn't get it done. And now Josh Naylor is going to hear that for the rest of the offseason, and Cleveland was no longer the underdog of that series once that happened, once he made that celebration. Because now everyone in Yankee Stadium justifiably does that. Gleyber Torres does that after the final out when he caught the ball at second base, rocking the baby. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. So he could do whatever he wants, but he learned to eat his own words, or I guess celebration.
Yeah. So we'll quickly dive into Houston, Seattle real quick, which Houston made this quick work. Seattle. Seattle's team is inexperienced, and they didn't. Well, we all expected them to get here, like somewhat, like be close, competitive. They learned a valuable lesson. They need bullpen arms badly. Their bullpen pulled themselves. Starting pitching was okay. Castillo, got allowed an absolute nuke late in his start. But Seattle, I feel like, needs one other piece of firepower in a way. Like, in a way where you could say, like, yeah, we're good, but we need to be better. Because they'll if you think about it, if they won at least one game against Houston, we can all say that they were a legit postseason contender in a way. Because they beat the number one seed in the game. You can say that they were competitive. Now, not saying they weren't competitive, but some of the decisions that they made, especially that 15-inning game, I thought that game was never going to end. I remember that game went 6 hours, by the way, for those that didn't watch it.
I have a personal experience. I actually went to a wedding over the weekend on Saturday. When I got there, the game started. It ended after I left. It's crazy.
Yeah, so I watched every inning after inning 10, and then I post. People who saw my Instagram said, like, will this ever end? And I never thought that game was going to end. Like, I remember watching Nationals when they had that 15-16-inning throw, Brandon Bell home run. But besides the point, Houston made a statement. They said, like, we're going to beat up the underdog in any means necessary. I mean, Verlander's look great. I mean, you saw what he did against the Yankees a couple days ago.
Yesterday.
Oh, it was yesterday. My bad. But they're legit. We can officially say that now. I bet they wish they had Correa back, though. I think they would. I
don't think so.
Jeremy Pena's been all right.
He's been really good,
but
and they're gonna have him for a while.
They've played it smart though.
Altuve doing everything smart.
Altuve has been the equivalent of an eraser, doing nothing.
All fairness, they're a great organization, and I think honestly they're probably the best organization in baseball when it comes to running that team.
Yeah,
they have consistently.
Other than that cheating scandal.
Not for nothing. That's what I'm saying. Like I have a little respect for that organization, but the little respect they do have is at how they put that team together because they're consistently good. I don't think they're better than the Dodgers. The Dodgers always calling guys up that perform, but they're they're phenomenal, and it's not even to the point where they had to build to that core. That core is either for a while. That Bregman, Altuve.
You have to sign Bregman.
But Jordan, he's going to be a pest in that Astros for years. It's crazy. I tip my caps to them.
Yeah,
they might win this series again. Who knows?
Yeah. On this?
Well, I mean, about that Seattle Mariners series, just have to say, I mean, even despite the fact they got swept, really impressive what Seattle was able to do there, just painting it and being competitive. Sure, Seattle may still be a year or two out, but I think that was definitely a good show. And even though they got swept, in terms of the ALCS, at least from what we saw in Game 1, Justin Verlander obviously did pitch for the Yankees, and I do have to say that Leon did his job for the most part. But really, the momentum shifted that one inning where Clark Schmidt ended up getting 2 home runs. It was one to Yuli Gurriel and one to Chas McCormick. Going forward in the series for the Yankees, just the key is just going to have to be you need to score more runs. I mean, we saw that there were 2 different instances where, I hate to bring his name up, but Matt Carpenter was not able to score twice with runners in scoring position. Obviously, in the case of Matt Carpenter, he's a guy who has not really got a consistent at bat since the beginning of August. So, I mean, putting him there in that situation is going to be tough. I'm not sure if he's going to get at bats like that again throughout this series, but just in general, the Yankees have scored all of their runs this postseason exclusively off the home run. So there has to be more kind of small ball in the sense where you get base hits, drive runners in that way. But, actually, by this time in the week, we're going to have our series matchups set. So I want to, I guess, before we for baseball, we should come to sort of a predictions once again. Who do we think is going to win this AL and LCS?
I mean, I'll make mine real quick. I'm going to Astros, West Coast matchup. What do you got?
I'm going to say Phillies, Astros.
Interesting. Colin?
I mean, I had the Yankees going in before the postseason, but, you want to pick the Yankees, but I just don't think I can do it. I can't really bring myself to do it. Hopefully they'll prove us wrong. But I think the Astros come out of the American League. And in terms of the National League, I have to go with the Phillies, right? I was the one guy who picked them here on this show, so I'll ride with the Phillies. Let's go Phillies. We're going to beat the Padres. I'll go Astros, Phillies.
All right.
Before we get into football, I want to talk a little bit about last night's game. Can I?
Real quick. Yeah, sure.
All right. You start Jameson Taillon, right? You're playing just beat a best of 5 series against Cleveland, right? First of all, I don't know why Clark Schmidt's closing game 3 out. Didn't really like the idea of bring in Jameson Taillon out of the bullpen in game 2. I don't get this bullpen this bullpen management from Aaron Boone and the Yankees front office. I don't get it whatsoever. Jameson Taillon should not be starting a 10th inning. I don't care if it wasn't his fault. I don't care if they got bloop hits and then one hard hit ball. I don't care. That's Clark Schmidt's job. Clark Schmidt's job is to be your 10th inning guy and give you some length and relief for the extra innings.
Would you start a Taillon in a game?
Yeah. For yesterday, yeah, I thought that was a good choice. It's one you had. I think Domingo Herman's another option, but was fine.
Like, if you go extra innings, I think using a starter actually makes more sense. Here's my reason for it. Say this game goes long, say 15 innings again. If you use a starter that you're not going to start an actual game with, phenomenal strategy. You save all those bullpen arms for the future, playoffs.
Well, here's the thing. This is the playoffs we're talking about.
Oh, yeah. I know.
Clark Schmidt has done a good job at coming in extra innings.
That is fair.
He's had 3 jobs. Comes in extra innings, gives you length. Comes in a game you're losing by a lot, or comes in a game you're winning by a lot. He should not be trying to get a save when there's runners on in game 3. And you should not be coming in a bases loaded to face 2 lefties like he did yesterday. He luckily got out of it with the double play, and he should not pitch the next inning. And I know that it sounds like a Monday morning quarterback move, but he is not built for that. You have Lou Trevino, you have Jonathan Loaizaga, you have Wandy Peralta, you have Clay Holmes. Those are your 4 relief pitchers in a tied game against the Houston Astros when facing Justin Verlander. And your team cannot touch this guy except for Harrison Bader's home run. You need to have put your best foot forward. I think that's the best the best way I could put it. You need to put your best foot forward. And honestly, I have not seen that from this management. I don't get it.
I don't everyone understand. Should be fired? Do you think everyone should be fired?
No, I'm not saying that. It's simple because here's the thing: you fire Boone, that's not going to solve anything.
So
I feel like I don't know. I don't get that game 3 decision bringing Clark Schmidt to close it out. There was clearly miscommunication there between the clubhouse and Boone because Clay Holmes thought he was fine. Luis Severino thought Clay Holmes was fine. So that's actually, I think, on Aaron Boone. And if the Yankees would have lost that series, I would have been calling for Aaron Boone to get fired. But if they lose this series because of bullpen management, I don't think that's going to go on Boone because he's a puppet. He's not a manager. He's a puppet. He listens to the organization and their front office, and how Steinbrenner instills his trust in the Yankees front office, led by Brian Cashman, and Brian Cashman trusts his guys. So it's a cycle that's going to keep going, and the only way that I think Yankee fans with it until this team wins the championship. And I don't know. Severino pitches tonight against Framber Valdez. The Yankees have finally realized another problem with this front office. Just do not understand that Connor Flubber cannot be a starter shortstop. They finally realized that. They actually start Oswald Peraza, which why is he not starting September. You called this guy up. He pretty much just rust on the bench just because you needed a guy to fill up your roster with the roster expansions in September. When he's your top prospect, he should be playing more in AAA. Or if you're going to call him up, play him, because the point of getting Connor Falefo was to start Peraza once he's ready from the major leagues. Now Peraza is actually showing a good glove and actually kind of hit. You still want to start him. Now you start him in game 2 against in the ALCS. And the same thing we said about the whole Matt Carpenter thing, right? You don't want to use this guy. You're insisting on using him in the playoffs. Now you're in the playoffs. You don't start him. You start him yesterday against Verlander. He looks outmatched. What do you expect? It's a 36-year-old Matt Carpenter who had the best stretch of his career magically a few months ago. Donaldson, I don't know what's up with him. They don't want to move him from the 5 spot. They actually just did, not for nothing. To give him credit for that, he is not a guy who's batting in the top, near the top 5. He's batting 6th today. He looks like a little leaguer up against Verlander. It's crazy. Cabrera should be your 5th batter. He's lineup lower. I don't know, but that's pretty much my mini rant on the Yankees.
Yeah.
I'm happy. Look, I'm happy they're in the ALCS. It could have gone a lot worse if they just lost one game. If Josh Naylor hit that home run with runners on, then maybe we would have been having a different conversation right now. Maybe the Rock the Baby would have been Cleveland's celebration in the ALCS as they get swept by the Astros. But now the Yankees are in, and now they'll get swept by the Astros. So look, I'm having fun watching this team still. I'm glad they advanced and did not get swept by Cleveland. But here they are where they want to be, and there are just some problems that need to be addressed. And it's going to go in the front office. So I guess that concludes baseball.
Yeah.
Well, unless you guys want to keep talking.
Let's go football real quick. Dive into that. We'll start off with the New York Jets, who are 4-2. Yes, that is right. They are 4-2. How
the world is ending?
How? Who knows? I mean, yeah, you could say that. That's a fair claim, saying that the world is ending. The Jets are 4-2, and I don't know. I'm concerned. I mean, Elijah Moore is frustrated that he's not getting thrown the ball to for one game. I mean, Zach Wilson went 10 of 18 for 110. The corners on Green Bay are slept on, so I don't understand why. I mean, Elijah Moore is your receiver 1, okay. Throw him the ball still. Like, that's my issue. Like, I don't know why they're going. Like, I don't know why they didn't go after the matchup with Kevin King and Elijah Moore. That would have been a very good matchup for Moore, but I mean, Corey Davis went 2 of 52. That was their leading receiver. They did not need to throw the ball. It's an ugly game. First half, I was falling asleep, but then they decided to turn it up with Breece Hall, who is, I think we can all agree, would be offensive rookie of the year this year. 20 for 116 and a touchdown. He's the first Jets running back in 5 years to rush for over 100 yards in 3 straight games, which is hilarious. But what did they do? Special teams look good. They had a blocked field goal, a blocked punt, and they scored points off special teams. That's never happens. Not since they fired their coordinator a couple of years ago. So the Jets, they go into an interesting match with Denver. We're going to get to that game in a little bit. But I don't know. I mean, Aaron Rodgers was 4 receivers. Now, granted, the Jets had, I believe, you should have to beat the teams that you're supposed to beat. Many Jets fans had hope going to this game, and they went out and won. That's how you have to really view a game like this. Going with no expectations, and I mean, all I wanted in that game was be competitive. Simple. And they went out and won. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm concerned with them not throwing the ball more. I feel like going against Denver, I think you're going to need to throw the ball more. Their pass rush, run defense, phenomenal. But we'll go into that game in a second. Colin, the New York Giants, man, 5-1.
But before we get into the Giants, I also wanted just to bring up, Ian Rappaport tweeted 25 minutes ago that Elijah Moore has officially asked for a trade.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So he said he's frustrated with his role. He's asked for a trade. The team has no plans at all to trade him. The former second rounder was targeted once in the win over the Packers, but the play was negated by a penalty. So that actually did just break as we were on air today, that he did ask for a trade.
That's it. So I'll go to this real quick. Why? It's one game. So here's the problem. You're a young wide receiver who the Jets will get a lot of back for. They're not going to trade him. I don't see this happening. For the only reason that the trade deadline is soon, they're going to get offers. I think there are teams that are going to go after him. Green Bay, San Francisco probably will go after him for no reason. But I don't know. It's a weird situation. And we saw this with Jamal Adams a couple years ago. He was really good. He wanted a pay raise. He's ripping through the organization. He gets traded for basically got traded for Garrett Wilson and a bunch of other stuff. I don't know what to think about this. It's nerve wracking because he's a phenomenal talent. Elijah Moore, second round pick, phenomenal talent. You can't really replace training. Here's an expectation for this game on Sunday, by the way. 7 for 100 yards. Early prediction. He's going to play as wide receiver 1, and Zach Wilson will throw on the ball. It's going to happen. You saw all the targets he got with Joe Flacco. What? I can't believe I said that. But Joe Flacco, he was his lead receiver, Joe Flacco. But that's all that. 5-1 Giants, man. 5-1.
And it really did not look like that was going to be the case. They were down 20-10 in that fourth quarter with 9 minutes remaining, but the Giants just find ways to win. I can't really put it enough into words about how this team wins or whatever, but they found a way to win this game. They scored a touchdown going down the field. Daniel Jones threw a strike to Daniel Bellinger. On that next possession, a really weird Ravens play where Lamar Jackson mishandled the snap. Then he ran around and threw a bad pick to Julian Love. But the Giants then went down and took the lead, and they never lost it as Kayvon Thibodeau had his first career sack on a strip sack of Lamar Jackson, which all but sealed the deal. Now, this Giants team got some more reinforcements at wide receiver. Wan'Dale Robinson, who only really played a couple of drives in that opener against Tennessee, really made his NFL debut here in this game. He had 3 catches, 37 yards, and a touchdown. And as Robbie said, the New York Giants are now 5-1. And I mean, I said going into this stretch here with the Packers and the Ravens, if you could just make one game competitive, that would kind of say a lot about the legitimacy. The fact that you're now 5-1, I mean, we are talking about a real possible playoff contender here in the New York Giants, and I still can't believe it. I mean, it was another game where you're down like they were against the Packers, against a very good team. Daniel Jones has now actually defeated the past 2 NFL MVPs in back-to-back weeks, actually debatably outperforming both of them in those games. And here we are at 5-1. I mean, New York sports, at least New York football right now. Giants are 5-1. The Jets are 5-2. Who would have saw that coming, Robbie? It's been great so far.
It's unbelievable to say that. Like, I mean, just seeing like all the news now, it's like a renaissance in a way. Like the teams are coming out of nowhere to be relevant. But you never would expect it. I think the Jets is the more surprising one because I don't think anyone expected them to get a better pick than 10, a worse pick than 10.
But I mean, then again, people thought the Giants were for sure going to be the bottom of the
Well, they were a sleeper team because like you have Kenny Golladay, throw him the ball. Like I'm surprised
he's still hurt. He wasn't out. He was playing.
Oh, no, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
But like I don't know, but it's a good deal for New York sports. It shows that they're trying to come back, but it's going to be very interesting to see how they play out the rest of the season, especially with Elijah Moore news. That it's a suck punch because he's a phenomenal talent, and I mean I don't know, but we go into some other games from last week. Denver, what are you doing? They went out against the Chargers. And Russell Wilson had 40 yards in the second half in overtime. So that's who they're paying $40+ million for. So I'll break this down real quick because I watched the game. The Chargers, no one wanted to do anything. And I mean, I had another correct pick without that last Thursday. But the problem with Denver, I don't think either head coach wanted to win that game. Like they both had some of the most clueless play calling I've ever seen, not since the likes of Adam Gase and Anthony Lynn.
I mean, what do we make about Brandon Staley right now? He's really made some questionable calls in the past.
He has made some questionable calls, and it's starting to make him look like people are going to want to give him the axe. It's possible, but I feel like it's going to be too quick for him. I feel like if he does this thing next year, I think he could get fired. But besides the point, Justin Herbert, I think, is possibly getting ruined by this team for the head coach that they have. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but Justin Herbert is a very good quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And in a right scheme, he could be an MVP. But I don't think, like, they're throwing for over 50 times a game. He's throwing up Joe Flacco numbers. Like, I don't understand. Like, Like, granted, they didn't have Keenan Allen. Josh Palmer went 9 for 57. Okay, you have a guy with his arm strength. Stop checking the ball down. That's all I'm going to say about that. But
And I also want to mention real quick, Brandon Staley is a coach with a defensive background. They got him since he was defensive coordinator for the Rams back in 2020, and yet it seems like he's the one who's making a lot of these fourth down calls, which is really surprising. A guy with a defensive background, really, those big offensive plays. But yeah, just a questionable play call, and we saw it last year. The Chargers could have made the playoffs, but Staley called a timeout, which led to the tie between the Raiders not happening. So I don't know if Staley's on the hot seat because obviously you're looking at a 4-2 football team, but if this team doesn't make the playoffs again, I think you're surely looking at that for sure.
Nice. So I want to. Someone just tagged me something, but besides the point, I want to go to another game that I think this was game of the week by far. Buffalo and Kansas City. First of all, shout out to Tony Romo who got that pick on the money during the first quarter. Fun game to watch. I mean, I was actually at dinner while watching this game. Josh Allen had a great game as per usual. Patrick Mahomes had multiple turnovers. You really didn't see that. What is Kansas City's issue? I mean, they went out and lost. Not the big problem. Their problem is their running game. It's invisible. Like, you think with the offensive line they have, like, you would think they would have the talent enough to have a 100-yard rush almost every week. That's fair, yes.
Yeah.
So
you'd figure the passing game would open up the running game, but
absolutely, and it's not. So, granted, Buffalo's defense is very good. It's gonna be harder to see them play the Jets in a couple of weeks, but Kansas City, that's a problem. Their run game is a problem. Like, you would never ever expect to see their run game be an issue, but I mean, Buffalo went out, did what they had to do, and with a late touchdown, we all thought we were going to go see what happened in the AFC Championship. We didn't, and everything finished out the way I think a lot of people wanted to end, with Buffalo winning this game.
I mean, yeah, I think that there's just a different scenario here where, when Kansas City got the ball at the end of the game, many, including me, thought that they were going to drive down the field and take the lead because it just seems like this is the nature of these Bills-Chiefs games as of late. Patrick Mahomes for a turnover, and that sealed the deal. But, really, I mean, these are two juggernauts that are really kind of, I'd say, pretty much at the same level at each other at this moment, Both of the teams, as you pointed out, really don't have a running game. I mean, Devin Singletary had a good game here. He had 17 carries for 85 yards, but both teams that heavily rely on the pass, two superstar generational talents at quarterback. And if these teams play each other anyway, once again, it's going to be another shootout, going to be another, I believe, all-time classic. And it just really depends on who gets the ball last. I mean, in this case, Mahomes had the ball last once again, but he just couldn't get it done. But good for Buffalo winning this game. They really did want this one, considering the past postseason heartbreak. So Buffalo gets that win. They have sole possession for the best record in the AFC. And before we get into the Thursday night picks, I want to hand it over to Chris if he has anything to say about either the Giants or any of the games that happened this week.
Being a Giants fan, watched the Giants game this weekend, and I was shocked. I don't know what to say anymore. I mean, Daniel Jones is actually good. I mean, this team is finding ways to win. I mean, that comeback was insane. I was not expecting that whatsoever. I mean, especially doing a touchdown in that quarter, the comeback and win by 4. I don't even have to say anymore. I'm just bamboozled, and you're playing the Jaguars. I mean, it's just I don't know. This team could genuinely just go 8-2. They lose if they win each and every one of the games until Thanksgiving. I think it is, but one of those losses being against either the Jaguars or those sort of.
So, real quick, I want to dive into some games to watch for this week. Of course, we have that every week. Game to watch this week. It's interesting because the one I'm going to pick is a little bit under the radar for one reason. I'm going with Chargers and the Seahawks as my game to watch, underrated game to watch for this week. Here's why. Geno Smith, by possibly statistically, is one of the best QBs in this league right now, which is baffling, I think, to everyone here. They're going up against a team that has many questionable play calls as of late in the Chargers. Seahawks went out and beat Arizona last week, 19-9. We get to dive into the Cardinals in a second. But this game is going to be an offense. I think there's going to be a decent amount of offense. I mean, Geno Smith is going to find a way. Chargers, I think, it could fight the run game more. They're very similar to Green Bay, by the way, because I can compare it to Chargers to Green Bay because they don't really use the style of players they have in the right way. Because Green Bay, great running game, they don't execute it very well. Chargers, same deal. So I feel like if the Seahawks can shut down the run, I think the Seahawks win this game. But the other game to watch this week, the Jets and the Broncos, and here's why. The New York Jets are 4-2. They have now the issue with Elijah Moore, but besides the point, they have a decent team. They're going up against the Broncos, who no one knows that they're starting a quarterback this week, which I don't think anyone was expecting this because for those who don't know, Russell Wilson is questionable with a hamstring issue as well as possible ankle injury. But I feel like this is a very winnable game for both sides. If Denver shows up to this game, they win. I think that's the best way to put it. I think they're one of the worst second half teams in the league playing the best second half team in the league. Like the statistics are off the charts for both sides, good and bad. So I mean, Colin, you got a game to watch for me this week.
Well, you picked out the Seahawks and the Chargers, which I like because that's kind of under the radar. I'll give you an under the radar game right here. How about Falcons Bengals? Now the Atlanta Falcons the Atlanta Falcons are at 500. No one saw that coming. And they've been playing pretty well so far. I mean, they're tied with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for the first place in the division. Really, another team like the Seahawks who had no expectations to win. But, Marcus Mariota, he's shot and that obviously hasn't played as well as Joseph. But the Falcons have the radar. And I think that Cincinnati Bengals, who kind of have struggled to this point, just got out of New Orleans. This game could maybe have upset to see who wins that game. Two teams that are both at 500. It's obviously Chiefs 49ers Super Bowl rematch. The 49ers need this one.
They're a mess too.
They are.
Jimmy G, man. That's an interesting topic. Jimmy Garoppolo. He went out and lost to the Falcons, which I don't think anyone was expecting from last week. Jimmy G looked awful. Well, at points of the game, he looked awful. First half, he looked good. Second half, erased. You're playing the Falcons who don't throw the ball. If you have a run defense, you can easily beat the Falcons, I think. And San Francisco didn't underestimate their opponent and went out and lost. Playing Kansas City, I feel like if they can shut down the pass, I think San Francisco can win this game. But San Francisco's not going to need to keep shooting themselves in the foot. And I like Kyle Shanahan, but I feel like he can't really manage a game that well either. For the reason of when you have a lead in the second half, you run the ball. That's not really going to work. But real quickly, I want to bring up one more headline from last week. Pittsburgh went out and beat Tampa Bay. This is chaos now. So Pittsburgh went out and lost Kenny Pickett due to a concussion in the second half. And then Mitchell Trubisky decides to look like Chicago for rookie Mitchell Trubisky and goes for 9 for 12 for 144 in the latter stages of the third quarter and the fourth quarter. He looked kind of decent. So now going forward for Pittsburgh, I don't know if Pickett plays this week. I don't even think they're playing the Dolphins on Sunday Night Football, which is going to be a very odd matchup because Tua could be coming back for that, by the way. Pittsburgh is in an interesting spot where if they find a way to beat the Dolphins, they're right back into it. Because every AFC team, I feel like, is going to keep imploding. I feel like it's very possible. But if Pittsburgh finds a way to win that game on Sunday night, hey, they can be right back into it. But it speaks more about Tampa Bay that there's more concerns about them because you should not be losing to Pittsburgh. I am sorry. Tom Brady and the weapons, like the somewhat weapons he has, and the squad around him, they should not be losing to Pittsburgh. Like for them, that's completely inexcusable. But we're gonna finish the show, of course, with our Thursday night football picks, as we've done for the last few weeks. Real quick, we got Instagram, of course. Shout out to the Instagram. Pick the Cardinals to beat the Saints tonight. I'll give this one a quick recap, quick prediction. Cardinals and Saints, two teams that are also somehow 2-4. So I'm gonna say this now. I said this last week with Washington and Chicago. There was gonna be no offense. There's gonna be this. It's gonna be somewhat similar. My score prediction is 2017 to the Saints, and here's why. The Saints defense. Granted, they didn't look great against Cincinnati. They put it in a good fight against Cincinnati. So a team that's their offensive line for Cincinnati has looked much better, but they gave them a good pass rush. And Arizona's offensive line is fall apart. So I feel like New Orleans is going to give Arizona a run for their money, even though DeAndre Hopkins is coming back for this game. 2017. What's your pick, Colin?
I've been very back and forth on this one. Poll, I went for the Cardinals, but however, my pick. I know. I apologize for the legitimacy of the poll, but I'm going to go for the New Orleans Saints here in this one. And the reason why is because I just don't like how the Arizona Cardinals are really operating right now. You know, Cliff Kingsbury's been under a lot of fire. He even actually said in an interview just recently that he feels that he should be on the hot seat for the way that the team has been playing.
And he signed a long-term extension this offseason.
Yeah,
that just proves how clueless they are.
You know, originally I felt that, you know, maybe the Cardinals would win this one because they actually just traded for Robbie Anderson. He's making his debut. DeAndre Hopkins is coming back. But just with how out of sync that offense has been and just in general, I mean, this is a game which, do not get me wrong, both teams need this one. They're both at 2-4. If you lose this game, you might be getting yourself out of the picture entirely. So this is a game both teams need to win. But I just feel like in terms of just chemistry and being more well-rounded, I'd say I feel like I trust New Orleans more in this game. I mean, I feel like with Arizona, you truly never know what you're going to get. I mean, I could be wrong here. They could have a huge offensive game. They could just explode against the Saints. But I feel the Saints are the safer choice here, and that's why I'm going to go with them. Chris?
I mean, it's pretty clear this Cardinals team is, both teams are a mess, as you said, and clearly the Cardinals. But just to be different, just forget again for another week of me having a different opinion than you guys, I'm going to say the Cardinals win this one somehow. And I'm going to say, they win it by score 2017. So I think they're going to win it by, the Cardinals are going to win by score.
Interesting pick. Well, unfortunately, guys, that is all the time we have for today. For myself and the two guys in the room, thank you for watching us. Make sure to tune into us every Thursday from 5 to 6. For everyone watching live, thank you for tuning in. For those seeing us on YouTube in a couple of days, hope you enjoyed the stream. And we'll see you guys next week.